Okay, I am so excited that today we're going to have a very important conversation. So, for all of you who are the teacher's pets in the classroom, you know what you need to do. As you know, I'm going to share this right now. I'm going to hit the record button for the BitChute account. Here we go. As you guys all know, my show and other shows like mine the algorithms are being kind of garbled up. So, the best way to help us grow the classroom is for you to share, to like, to follow. The more comments you make, the better off it is. And that's what helps us grow. So if you're not a financial donor, you can help out by also donating your time and your friendships and letting them know that the class is open. Because today we're going to talk with Peter Kozodoy about helping one another kind of support one another's differences. And today we're going to be giving away one of these books. There you go. Right on time, Peter, right on time. So fasten your seatbelt because it's time to learn together. It's time to dance.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, it's been such a nightmare these days with all the division. One by one, we will figure out a different way to be divided. But where we see it the most is on social media. How many times are you finding yourself completely disgusted by the fact that someone is posting something that they obviously don't have the facts? But here's the thing. The person who thinks they also have the facts has that same opinion of you. And so where does it stop? Where do we find commonality? So we reached out to speaker and author, business coach, Peter Kozodoy, and he's also the author of Honest to Greatness. And we're going to be giving away one copy. We're going to put this in the winner's basket. So you need to text me need to claim it, first of all, right below. And then you need to text me at 407-373-5959. And, we're going to talk about how honesty is always the great policy. That is the best way to live your life. But do we have to be mean about it? So, since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Peter Kozodoy is here to do just that. Welcome to the classroom, Peter.
It is absolutely my pleasure to be here, Lily. And I love your three things about responsibility and truth and awareness. That is what I am all about. And we're going to probably say those words 80 times today talking.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but my registered service mark is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. It is so important that we figure out ways to change the things that we don't like about ourselves, if we
Yep.
can change it, to change it instead of blaming. And I think that this is what's happening. And so today we're going to have an honest conversation. Other than our name, rank, and serial number, that's what we've exchanged with one another. But the conversation is real, it's live. And so I want all of you to, instead of thinking about, oh, that sounds like so-and-so, oh, that sounds like so-and-so, I want you to see yourself in our conversation today. I want you to see yourself in this conversation today. So, Peter, share a little bit about your background and what started off as a business entrepreneur kind of book turned out to be an honesty book. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, let me take you back even further than that, Lily. I don't know if
Okay.
you know this factoid about me, but I was actually a very serious Olympic hopeful figure skater in my
I did
teens.
not know that.
And that was the path I was on. I like to say at 17, I knew two things to be true. One is I was going to the Olympics as a figure skater, and the other was that I was going to Harvard. I grew up outside of Boston. I had several family members go. There's only one school, that was Harvard. That's where I was going. I never even gave it a second thought. By 18, it was clear I was not good enough to make the Olympics. Wasn't going to happen despite 15 years of training. I mean, I was on the path and a lot of broken bones. Also, I applied to Harvard. Harvard sent me a nice letter back saying thank you, but no thank you. And it was devastating. All of a sudden I had this train going this way, and now I'm not going that way. I'm going, and I was like, well, I didn't sign up. I didn't buy a ticket for this train, I bought a ticket for that train. And yeah, it was a devastating time. And what also happened, Lily, is it's a wonderful way to fuel, and get two giant chips on your shoulder, which is what I developed in my 20s. And that helped me grow a multi-million-dollar Inc. 5000 marketing agency. It was one of the fastest growing companies in the US for 2 years in a row. And all was well and good until I turned 30, which was a horrendous crisis. I don't know if this has happened to you. I can't believe it happened to me. I still have nightmares about it to this day. But one of the things came out of that was I realized that those two big failures in my teens, I had never really gotten over. I had actually begun to accept a second best version of myself. It was like, well, the first best version wasn't going to pan out, so I guess it's going to be the second best version. And for the first time in a long time, I had to get really honest about what the first best version of me even was. Who really was I, and what did I actually want to achieve? One of those things was writing a book. And I sat down to write what I thought was a marketing book. And that came out of all my experiences growing a marketing agency and working with local startups and car dealers to Warren Buffett himself. And so I sat down to write a marketing book, and we'll get into that a little later. But it was my agent who said, this really isn't a book about marketing. It's a book about honesty. And I was like, well, you're a literary agent, but clearly you can't read because it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a marketing book. And of course, I went home and I'm thinking about it and looking through it. And I was like, damn, he's absolutely right. This is so much bigger than how do we communicate. This is about, what do we believe? How do we build a society? How do we interact as people? And so, to my shock and horror, Lily, I am now the guy who runs around and talks about honesty, which if you had told me that, when I was 20 years old, I would have told you you're smoking crack or something, but here we are.
Well, I'm glad. I'm sorry that your dreams didn't come true, but that was just a foundation to your dream. Your dream was much bigger than
That's
you
right.
could have ever imagined. And lately, this is how I've been living I've lived my life this entire time, but now with all this stuff that's happening in the world today, and I don't want to mention names and I don't want to talk about all the stuff that's happening that could get it kicked out. It's prepared us for this moment.
I believe so.
It's really prepared us. And so this was all purification for it. I had a similar dream, although I was not an Olympic hopeful. To me, I wanted to be a rockette. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be out there. And when I at 16 was told that I could no longer dance, that my knees were deteriorating cartilage and that I probably have like fake knees and all that stuff.
Wow.
At 16, I was told all this. You kind of get like, well, I at first I was like, well, I'll wheel myself out if I have to. I'll be a martyr. I'm gonna dance. That's why we do a lot of dancing, at the beginning. But what I finally came to my senses was I'd rather walk from this than wheel from this. So at a very early age, you need to learn to adapt. And the younger you are and become more adaptable, this is what could happen. Look at what you've done. This is unbelievable. Congratulations.
And you put your finger on it this year. And the word that comes to mind is resiliency, because all through this pandemic, it's like, is it horrible? Yes. Have people suffered financially? Yes. Have people died? Yes. It truly is terrible. Still, Lily, what a gift this year and this time is. There will come gifts out of this. Many of us are restructuring our lives and where we live and what we do for work and how we're treating our families, spending time in ways we never thought possible. Our society is going through a massive disruption that we need to all hope comes out better in the end. So if we don't, two questions I like to ask people, is one of my takeaways is like, whatever you think or say or feel or see, it's like, is that true? And how do I know?
Yes.
Well, is it true that that 2020 is a gift? Well, it's true if you believe it. So it's really up to us.
Yeah. About 25 years ago. I don't know if you know who Wayne Dyer is, Dr. Wayne Dyer. So Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yes. He was in, didn't they mention him in The Secret or something like that?
Oh, probably. It's been a long time since I've seen The Secret. But Wayne Dyer was one of the staple authors of Hay House. And a long time ago, probably now going on 25 or so years, probably longer than that, he quoted someone, he could not remember who it was, but it turns out to be Max Planck. And the quote goes, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Sure.
That completely changed my life. That knowing that it's up to me to see it in a way that it's going to support me and support others. Later on in life, as I became a certified life coach, I learned about win-win, because I always thought that you must lose in order for me to win. And that is not a good way to live your life. So win-win with life transformation for me. So nowadays you're seeing this, people are defriending each other. If you have a difference of opinion, you're shamed. Let's talk about, the freedom of speech and the fact that I have the right to say whatever I want to say, and you have the right to say whatever you want to say, but neither one of us has the right to shame you. If you don't like it, just don't do it. Just go a different direction. Let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, my thoughts are it's really sad, because as soon as we shut down opinions, as soon as we shut down communication, we fail to learn anything new, and we fail to change our own perspectives. So, one of the things I've been on several television newscasts recently because they had me on talking about masks, right? Some people, the mandate is to wear masks. Some people want to wear masks. Some people don't want to wear masks. We're fighting about masks. It's a mess, right? And my point has always been, this is true of masks, of anything. There is no book, no source of wisdom that's going to tell you, you know what, the best way to change someone else's mind is to just yell at them and tell them they're stupid and to make fun of them, right? Like, that's not a thing. And yet we seem to all behave that way for some inexplicable reason. Honestly, Lily, I don't know. It's baffling to me.
It is.
But one of my urging pieces of advice is, please stop doing that. Start asking people, hey, I see you do want to wear a mask or you don't want to wear a mask. Tell me about that. How did you come to that conclusion for yourself? What sources are you looking at? What facts are you looking at? What are you reading? Tell me, educate me. Can you imagine if we all walked around and asked those open-ended questions to gain better understanding? Versus, I can't believe you're doing this and you're endangering what it's like, who's that helping? Yeah. And we know this. As I'm speaking this, everyone out there listening is like, yeah, no, of course that makes sense. But I bet you've done it. So we need to be honest about how people act and interact. We need to be honest about how people change. One of the other things I want to bring to people's attention is we have millions of folks out there who are facing certain death because they have type 2 diabetes, or they've developed some other type of illness that is chronic in nature and preventable with things like diet and exercise.
Lifestyle changes. Yes.
Thank you. And in the face of death, they are still not making those changes. What does that tell you about how difficult it is for people to change? And the last thing we want to do is assault someone's ego as a method for helping them become their better selves. So, until we get honest, about how humans even go through these processes, we won't be able to, as a society, kind of take a deep breath and step back. And that's why I love your whole thing about responsibility. One of my biggest values is personal responsibility. And if we, each one of us, don't start taking personal responsibility for helping others disarm, share, come to common ground through being open to hearing different ideas, we're not going to fix any of this. It's just going to continue to be a mess. Nothing I'm saying should shock anyone. Nothing I'm saying should be so outlandish that people are like, well, I can't possibly sit there and be open-minded and listen to others' opinions. And yet, why are we here?
Okay, so I want you to know that today we are giving away Honest to Greatness. This is a wonderful book that gives lots of examples of how you can become honest in your business, and as well as
in your life
and in your with your family, personal and with your family. And so the way you win this book is we are going to do what we normally do, where you claim it wherever you're watching, you claim it, and then you text me 407-373-5959. Let me know that this is the book you want. So I am excited that you get to choose. And then what we'll do is we'll pick one name. All the people that submit a name will be put into the winner's basket, and one name will be selected. So that's how we do it. So everybody has a chance to win today. So let's talk about the frustration. You hit it on the nail when you talked about health, that people aren't willing to change. And there is, when you know certain truths about health and wellness, there is this, I want to change it, I want to help it. But I've learned that it doesn't matter what you say or what you do if the other person doesn't care. And these are some of the things that I've seen that I've been able to learn to walk away. This has been really good training for me to just turn off and walk away, because nothing I say from this point on is going to make a difference. If people want to know where I get my information, I'm more than happy to share. But what is your opinion on this? Because people are going into other people's Facebook pages, which is kind of going into their home. I'll give you an example. I have a policy of no shoes in my home. You want to leave your shoes? Okay, there we go. So we're pretty like-minded. So if you want to wear shoes in our house, you need to wear shoe covers, because there's so much junk out there that you're bringing into my home. And my home is my sanctuary. And so there are people that think it's so ridiculous, they refuse to come to my home. That's an option. That is an option. There are people who love it. They think, oh, wow, let me learn more about it. Why is it that you're doing that? That's an option. And then there are people who come and say, you know what? I feel comfortable wearing shoe covers, or I'm never going to take off my shoes. Well, there are two options. We can clean the bottom of your shoes, or we can put covers. So I give people options. I don't care what they choose to do, but respect my home. Mm-hmm. This is my home. So I have that same philosophy on Facebook or, social media. This is my belief. This is my home. If you have a difference of opinion, why do you have to chastise me? I'm not going on to your home and disobeying and disregarding your rules. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can make people aware that my house, my rules, your house, your rules. Either one of us have the right, and maybe somehow take the fight privately, not public shaming. What would you like to say?
It's a great question. It's a great problem. In fact, I think it's probably the biggest problem that threatens us as a broader community, as a society. As I've said before, yes, it's here in 2020. We're living in a pandemic of COVID-19, but for many years before, we were living in a pandemic of dishonesty. And part of that's why there's so much distrust around the nation. I don't know about the world, I'll speak for the nation, about these guidelines and that. And people are like, well, you've told us stuff before, whether the you is public sector, private sector, whatever. I mean, look at the news, of scandal after scandal. It's like, how many times can we be misled? Now, unfortunately, that's led to what I call a pandemic of dishonesty, where people are unsure who to trust. Now, the trickle-down effect of that is what you're talking about. You get a bunch of people who are convinced that they are right because we all have that bias, right? Nobody walks around thinking like, "Gosh, I'm just wrong all the time, and I'm so stupid." And why do I think all these stupid things? Like nobody thinks that, right? Everyone thinks they're right, and everyone thinks they're doing what's in their best interest, right? So often, Lily, we fail to come back to the interpersonal that's going on behind the scenes. So, for example, if you were expressing that you wanted people to wear not wear shoes in your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were in person, like you and I were having this conversation. I say to you, well, that's just silly. I mean, I don't know why anybody would do that, and that's crazy. You have two choices. You talk about choices, right? You can argue with them and try to convince them that you're right, or you can step back and say, what's going on with you? What's up with you today? It's just shoes. You know, the shoes thing's not a big deal. So what's up really? What a good question, right? So often I've done that, and the person will kind of like look at me like, well, I mean, what do you mean? I just don't want to wear shoes. And I'm like, it's not about the shoes. Come on. You know that. You put the little booty on. It's not a big deal. What's behind that? What's up with the shoes? Do you hate, shoes in general? Do you love shoes? Are you shoe fetish? Did you, have someone smack you with a shoe when you're 5 years old? Like, tell me about you and shoes and houses and cleanliness, and tell me about it. And I'll say it just like that with a smile on my face. And like, tell me about that. And then they go searching. Like, I don't know. Gosh, I don't know. Why don't I like shoes? Boom. Now they're thinking about, why did I react that way? That's sort of silly. If you can get a person in that state, now you can have a constructive conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But how do we do that? So, one morning I woke up and I thought, how is it that the 1% of the 1% is controlling the 99%? The narrative that's out there, if we don't repeat it, then we're wrong and we're shamed. And that's the cause and effect. If you don't speak what you hear, then there are consequences and shaming or blaming or doing all that. For me, I hear it, and anything that we say here in the classroom, anything I share with you privately, I am just tickled pink if you decide that you're going to research it, because that means it's no longer my truth. Now you're researching it and making it your own truth, or you reject it. So with that in mind, I realized that all this division, first it was, religion or race or, color. Now it's about masks and if you're sick or not, or health or whatever. And so I started the group I Am 99, and it's about focusing on what we have in common. Even if we disagree with, maybe 5 or 10 or maybe 50% of what you believe, maybe there's another 50% that we do agree. And I think that if we look at what we agree upon, we can have a really healthy relationship. Maybe we can learn how to discuss the things we can't, but that's not what's happening, Peter. What's happening is that relentless, you must be wearing a tin, like one person said to me that I wear a tin foil hat. I don't remember where that came from.
Knowing you wore it in a very stylish way.
I did. Put a little rhinestones on it. I bedazzled mine.
I'm sure
mine is all bedazzled. I don't know if anybody can relate to your bedazzled, but I had sent that individual information because that's how they came across with me. So I sent facts. I sent, where I'm getting my information, and they thought I was talking down to them. And I'm thinking, you see in others who you are. So it doesn't matter what I do, whether I share facts, unless I say exactly what they're saying, all of a sudden I'm an idiot. What happened to the other 50% we have in common, or 90% that we have in common? What is that 10% or 5% become the focal point right now? So what are some of the tips that you share? As you said, even though you're a business coach, you find yourself, dealing with personal issues that are, business issues in disguise, as you had said earlier.
All the time.
Yeah. So what are some of the tips that you give people to have them sit back and say, this is not about that other person. This is really about me. And why am I so upset about what they're saying?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is we're very sensitive. We all have very sensitive egos. Recognizing that and taking steps to prevent that ego from coming forward. Very difficult, but very rewarding. I mean, I've taken it upon myself. You talk about like talking, right? Who's the wisest person in the room, Lily?
The silent one, the one that doesn't say anything.
It's always the one in the corner who's just watching. They're watching people talk, and they're probably thinking to themselves like, oh, a bunch of morons these guys are. And then towards the end of the conversation, like picture a conference room, right? Towards the end of the conversation, everyone turns to that person. They say, what do you think? And everyone shuts up. The wise person, right? And we know that, but we can't like help it. I have to like say something all the time, right? When I hear you sent that person facts, it's like, it's wonderful you sent them facts. I wonder if you asked permission first. Mm-hmm. Are you open to hearing, seeing other things?
Yep.
I would even step back further from that and say, what's going on with you in your life? What is it? I hear you have this opinion. What does it mean to you? Because we don't
help me understand. Help me understand is such a great, where are you getting your facts? Where are you getting your facts? Help me understand, because I always believe that we should be curious, not critical.
Curious. I love that word. And that's exactly what it is. Curious. When I have situations in teams, one of the things I drill into the entrepreneurs I work with is you need to ask permission. This triggered a thought in me and I have some feedback, but is it okay if I share it? I don't want it to come off as harsh. No, people are going to be like, no, yeah, I can take it. Yeah, give it to me, right? All these little psychological tricks, ask for permission. Can I do this? Can I share this with you? Would that be okay? Are you open to hearing that? There are those types of questions, they box people in. No one is going to be like, no, I'm a closed-minded a-hole. I don't want to hear what you're like. That doesn't happen, right? But, to your point about division and lines of division, I do. And I'm not a clinical psychologist. I should defer to my friends. I do not know. I wonder if it's possible to do what we're trying to do. Humans, have existed in tribes for tens of thousands of years, right? And it was my tribe, and it was a small tribe, and that tribe's over there. And by the way, we probably go fight that tribe 3 times a year, like clockwork, right? Now we live in a, by and large, extremely peaceful society. We haven't had a war in a very long time, a real war, right? And I wonder, like, can humans of all different races and creeds and ethnicities and all that, can we do what we're trying to do? Should be possible. You and I clearly want it to be possible.
Yes.
There are people who are open-minded enough to ask questions and want diversity and all this great things that make, by the way, life better and business performance better. Okay. There's a real reason for us all to do this, but I do wonder if all of our collective egos are able to handle that, or if there's some prehistoric part of our brains that demands us to be tribal and like virulently tribal. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, it's funny that you said there's no wars, that it's been a long time since there've been a war, but I think the battle is different now.
Oh, 100%.
The battle zone is inside of us because we're empty. We have lost our connection with self. We have lost our connection to God. We have lost our connection with who we are.
Yeah, I agree.
And what we were meant to be. So I believe that this internal battle is fear of being found out.
Do you mind if I put that another way?
Sure, absolutely.
Think about it. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
The top is self-enlightenment, right? This idea. I think a lot of us are stuck there, right? We have food and water and shelter. Most, not all, terribly. Most of us, right? Food, water, shelter, like all the things we need to survive. And then we're just stuck at self-actualization, which is the reason why it's at the top. Is it's really hard, right? And without, all of those more basic drives, I think we struggle with all the things you've just described, Lily, excellently described. It's like, who are we and what's our purpose and what are we doing here? I wonder if, evolution had really planned that well, because we all seem to be in this place unsure what to do.
Yeah. And what's happening is that we're fighting amongst ourselves. There's the war. There's the war that is the I am 99, and that's what it's all about. That the 1% is creating all this division, the illusion of the division, when we're really just one, and we're fighting amongst ourselves. And the more, if you take 99%, divide us in half, then we're 49%. You divide that in half, and then you keep dividing until we're like at 1% of, the 1% can control the 1%. So because we're all doing the inner fighting. So there is a war, and it is insane. It's insane that we are fighting amongst ourselves because we all want the same thing.
We all want the same thing. I say that all the time. It's like
Yes.
everyone want, especially, back to the mask thing. It's like no one's walking around without a mask because they want to die or because they want to endanger their family, right? We all literally want to be safe and happy and wealthy and healthy. It's like,
Yeah.
we don't
Well,
come back to those enough.
No. And because I've done, and going on the mask, because I don't want to go off on that one, but every time I post anything about not wearing a mask, like when I post a lot of things about, self-actualization, being kind, being loving, that might get a few reactions. But the moment I post about not wearing a mask or, taking
Oh,
a
yeah.
position, I am called names, I am shamed. People don't know who I am. They don't know, that this was a personal decision. And if I don't wear a mask and you decide to wear a mask, I'm okay with that. And if you don't have a mask, that's okay with me too. I don't make you feel bad about it. I just don't understand why someone is making me feel bad about it. And I even was told that, wearing a mask was a sign of respect. And I'm thinking, well, God, I thought respect was totally different. To me, respect is something totally different. This is when you're kind to somebody, when you're courteous to someone, not calling them names because I'm not wearing a mask. And so, like, I don't know if this has happened to you in your social media where you post something that's a little controversial and you get a lot of people just, hitting your website and it's kind of like, oh, should I be controversial or should I play it safe? And if I play it safe, then everybody just goes with the flow. But if at the moment I make a controversial statement, then all of a sudden everybody has to be right.
I mean, PR wisdom and the results that you can point to would say, yeah, controversy works. But that's back to people being honest with themselves. It's like, why does controversy work? Because it gets our egos all aflutter. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's like, just shut up and listen and ask yourself, like, is that even true? How do I know? Oh, okay, I'll put that in the knowledge bank and keep moving forward and keep collecting stuff. It's like, we don't need to just like jump up and have a reactionary opinion. I mean, one of the most honest things you can do is just stop reacting. Stop reacting. Take a beat. I was talking to an entrepreneur the other day, very successful guy, just published a book actually. And he was saying how he used to have a rule about like, he'd like write this furious email that he'd get something in his inbox that pissed him off. So he'd like write back and it was all angry and stuff. And he would, when he was young, he used to send it, right? We've all done that. As he got older, he used to just like put it in drafts and leave it and then go back to it the neit's day. And he was like, oh, that was pretty stupid. I'm glad I didn't press send on that. We never react well, right? And we know this, and yet we still react. So yeah, I get it. And listen, I mean, I made a decision on this, but I mean, this is a business book, right? It's a how to achieve outcomes in life book. It's not a politics book. I really don't talk about politics in it at all. And I haven't on any of these shows because I just don't want to get into it. I just don't want to get into all that.
Interestingly enough, I don't do sports and I don't do politics. That's been my motto since 2011. But for the first time, there is so much division that is identified, like health is identified with politics. Wearing a mask is identified with politics. And it's just insane the way that identification is. And I just want to encourage people to be curious about, to detach ourselves from it. And instead of being focused on the mask, focus on getting healthy. Because this is the time, you don't know how many times, Peter, I've been behind somebody in a cart, that they can't even walk. And I see all the stuff that's in there. And they're wearing a mask, and then they go outside and they smoke. And it's not that I want to place judgment on it, but I'm saying you're killing yourself. It's not the other stuff that's killing you, because the viruses don't kill. It's the reaction to your environment and your body that does, And so that's what, but I've learned to step away and just say a prayer. And just say, okay, that's the life they've chosen. But I wonder if they would choose it if they knew the truth, And if you're not ready for the truth, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, what's our role, right? I mean, I'm taking on and there are many levels of honesty, and we've been talking about the middle level, which is getting honest with and about the others around you. And it's one thing to be, you could be honest with that person and just walk up to them and spill your knowledge on them, but that's failing to get honest about them. It's like, are they looking to you for that? A stranger? Are you the right person? Do you have the right message? And if it's no, then why bother? And that's why I make a point. People were very excited when I wrote this book. They're like, oh, that's great. I'm so honest. Like, I just tell it like it is all the time. And I'd be like, oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're a real jerk. That's not what honesty is. Honesty is more complicated than that. It's more nuanced than that.
So let's talk about this honesty. Let me take a little break here and talk about being honest here. I want all of you to stay connected. I've mentioned to you before that a lot of people have said, with all the different guests that we've had in the classroom, why don't I have 1 million followers? And it dawned on me, we just learned that the algorithms that are being shared are keeping the classroom from other people noticing it, even though we have huge teachers in the classroom. So here's what I'd like for you to do. I need for you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com and subscribe. While you're there, click on my social media and like and follow. And I hope, Peter, you've done that too. So like and follow and share some of the videos that you learn, because that is the only way we're truly going to get out there. And it's up to you. If we're to grow, it is up to all of us to do it together. So while we're there, I mean, we have BitChute, and BitChute is so important because we don't know how long we will have this platform. I'm very grateful for these platforms, but we don't know how long. So go to BitChute, please subscribe there. I've got a Twitter account. I've got all the social media. So please like, follow, subscribe. Now, while you're in the classroom at whenyouneedafriend.com, and you get lots of free prizes when you do this, and my ebook that I wrote, a long time ago, about self-love, a 90-day challenge to self-love ebook. I want you to go to my sponsors page and check them out. Make sure that you support them the way that they are supporting the classroom. And so those sponsors are Keep Me Safe Organics, beauty products, be safe from chemicals, be organic. Keep Me Safe Organics beauty product, if you get 10% off of that. First Alternative Care, that's telemedicine that has non-urgent medical, dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling for the entire household. For your entire household for $19.99. That's unlimited for your entire household. That is the Lillian McDermott radio show special. You must subscribe to be a part of that. The pharmacy in Merritt Island, changing the pill to a compound, and they do much more than that. So mention my name as well, and you get 20% off your first order. Live Longer Medical, making you as beautiful on the inside as you are out. And of course, my affiliate programs like Ground Thread Therapy, Brain Tap. You can get free Brain Tap to reprogram your brain, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And First Alternative Therapies like Avasia that has helped manage pain naturally. So please support my sponsors the way they are supporting the classroom. And last but not least, you can become a enrolled student in the classroom you can give $1 or $1,000, whatever you can provide. Please give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. So today we're talking with Peter Kozodoy, and we're talking about the book Honest to Greatness. And I want all of you to send me a text at 407-373-5959 and claim this book. Your name will be put into the winner's basket, and then one name will be selected. I'm going to give a few days to go by so that if the people that are on podcasts, who I absolutely love, you guys are rocking it, by the way. The increase in podcast downloads has been phenomenal. So thank you. So all of you too are included. So I'm going to hold off until Friday. I'm going to do all the giveaways on Friday. And so on Friday, we'll do the giveaway. So you have time, but don't wait, because you might forget and you have to remember everything, so do it now. Only handle it once, Ohio. Do it now and claim your prize. 407-373-5959. So Peter, I would love to come up, because this classroom is all about solutions. We've talked about the problem, and all of us can roll our eyes about the problem. So let's talk about solutions. Some of the tips that we can do to be honest with ourselves, not necessarily being honest with the other person. You can be honest about yourself, but how do we say something? Again, we know that we need to ask for permission. That's a given. So how are we be honest if somebody really wants our opinion without being insulting or unkind?
Oh gosh. You know, I'm a big believer in questions. And I think you're all about this, Lily, right? It's like,
Mhm.
instead of statements, let's ask questions. Somebody asks me like, hey, what's your opinion on this? What do you think? The first thing I'm going to ask is, what are you really asking? What are you really asking? And they'll either, sometimes they'll rephrase the question just like that. And I'll be like, yeah, that's what you're really asking. Wasn't it? And other times they'll be like, what do you mean? I'll say, well, I mean, do you really want direct feedback on that? Or what's actually the feedback you're expecting? What, like, that gives me a starting point, right? Because if they say something like, well, I was hoping that you'd really love it, then I know what they want is
I love
validation.
it.
Right? But if they say, listen, I really want to make sure that I don't walk into this meeting and this presentation's wrong, I need it to be right. It's more important that it's right than that I am right. Then I know what they're really asking, which is they really want, okay, well, I'd put that slide here and I'd put that there and whatever, right? This applies no matter what. What are you really asking? The spouse comes in. Do you like this outfit? What are you really asking?
Yeah.
I'll say to my wife, like, do you want me to say that I love it and you look great? Or do you want me to say, if I were you, this is what I would do differently? And 9.5 times out of 10, Lily, it's no, I want you to just tell me it looks good. Right. And sometimes she's like, no, this time I really actually want to know. And then I know. But so often we don't pause to ask the question. We are what? Reacting. We talked about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So I want people to ask better questions. What are you really asking? Is that true? And how do I know? Whether it's a headline, a Facebook post, a thought you have in your head. I work with entrepreneurs, right? And oh my gosh, Lily, I can't tell you how many times an entrepreneur will say to me, yeah, well, yes, I need to do that, but I can't do that until I do this. And I'm like, well, who the hell told you that?
Yeah.
Because
Limiting.
that's just something in your head. Like, that's not even
right.
true, right? Is that true? And how do I know? Is that true? How do I know? I get it all the time. I don't have a fancy MBA like you, Peter, so I can't. It's like, so? And what value have you attached to that? Who told you that was true? Okay.
That's right.
So often we're making decisions and speaking and conducting our lives on a foundation of BS that's not even true, right? So I have a BS meter on the front of my book.
Yes. That's right.
So, and all these things are just simply self-limiting beliefs, ego. There's a wonderful framework that was taught to me when I joined entrepreneurs organizations called the Johari Window. It's created by 2 psychologists many decades ago. And they split the window into quadrants. I talk about this in the book and go into depth, but one of the quadrants is the blind spot. And the blind spot's essentially things people know about you that you don't know about yourself even. Now, the problem with this is you're in denial, but everyone else knows the truth, right? It's like, yeah, I'm late sometimes, but it's not a big deal. No, you're always late and it sucks and it's a huge deal. And it makes me not trust you and not want to invite you places. That's a blind spot, right? And so the question is, what do we do about that? Well, first, recognize that you even have one. Most people don't even think about it, right? And it's on, as I say in the book, honesty is a pursuit, right? It's not a goal. It is a lifelong pursuit you undertake, like committing to learning, committing to going to Lily's classroom, right? And so the question is, how can we be aware of it? How can we be aware of it all the time? The only way I've found, Lily, is through a dedicated group that you can go to be very, very vulnerable about what's going on. Just put on the table, hey, here is what it actually is. I run these groups for entrepreneurs. It's called Forum. And the whole idea is we need to get honest about what's really happening in the entrepreneur's case, business, but also personal and family life. Because otherwise we're solving the wrong problem. It's like, I have a sales problem. Well, is it a sales problem or is it a confidence problem? Because depending on which one you solve, you're going to get a different solution, different outcome, right? And so only through, being able to come and vulnerably share something, get it off your chest, put it on the table, then you actually deal with it, right? But so often, and we do this in society because we live in a society that prioritizes kindness over honesty. I say, hey, Lily, how's it going today? How are you? And you'll say, good,
great.
good.
Yeah.
Are you good? Is that true? I don't know, right? But it's too bad because we lose the opportunity to understand how we really are. And sometimes I'll even say, like, in a situation where it's appropriate, I'll be like, no, I mean, really, really, how are you? Like, if you had to say, what's the top 5% of stuff that's going on in your life? What's the bottom 5%? What would that be? And it's surprising how many people want to actually share and talk. I don't think I've ever gotten someone who's like, oh, I don't want to share that with you. They always just like open right up. And what a wonderful way to build camaraderie and build a relationship and have people walk away saying, wow, that Peter, he really he really wants to know how I was doing. That was cool, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Lily, I was not always this way. I was voted most likely to continue being an a-hole in like high school. I'm telling this is true, right? So if I can learn the value of like honesty and transparency and vulnerability, trust me, anyone can. But
I
this
understand.
stuff works.
Yeah, I understand. I get your point, because I often say that the woman, the student in the classroom today is certainly not the woman that began the radio show in 2011.
Hmm.
So it's a journey. It's a journey, and I am excited when people want to grow with me, because I'm not done growing. And I did a meme a long time ago that was, have you seen those crime scenes? Those crime scenes where they have the chalk outline.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I always say that if anybody, there are two things: that if you find me out in the street without lipstick, put a chalk line around me because I'm dead, or if I say I know it all.
Yeah.
Anyone who says it, I know it all, put a chalk outline around you because you are dead. I believe that until we take that final breath, we stop learning how to grow. And that has motivated me. But here's the thing. Sometimes we become identified with whatever our situation is. I identify with wearing a mask. I identify with not wearing a mask. I identify with my illness. I identify with this. I identify with that. How do you help someone lose identification to an object or a feeling or whatever, and really focus on what really does matter, which is to be curious and to learn and grow?
They are layers. They can be peeled. I speak to entrepreneur groups, right? And one of the best questions that I ask them is, I'm like, okay, we're going to design our ideal day, right? Heads down, like, what does your ideal day look like? And I'll call on the first person. Lily, this happens every time. It's tens of times I've done this. And they go, oh, Peter, I got it. I want to work 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. And they're all like proud of themselves. They're like, yeah, that would be awesome. And I'm like, oh, why would that be awesome? They're like, well, now I work, 10, 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week. And if I could work 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, that would be amazing. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Why don't you want to work like 2 hours a week, 2 days a week? And they're like, well, yeah, that would be awesome, but that's not possible. I'm like, oh, really? And therein lies the catch, right? It's like, what do you identify with? Why do you identify with that? Who told you that? Why do you believe that's true? Here's a great question. What if the opposite were true? Mm-hmm. Peter, I know I have to work more. I'll make more money if I work more. Really? Mind you, these are entrepreneurs, not hourly employees, right? Who told you that? What if the opposite were true? How would you keep going like you're going? What would you change? Yeah. People can redesign their lives and their minds like that. I talk about that in the book. I'm like, the only constants change. We know that. That's not my phrase. And yet we fail to capitalize on that by being phoenixes, right? Constantly destroying ourselves and reviving ourselves from the ashes. If we don't do it, then a coronavirus is going to come and do it for us. So we may as well be the proactive ones in our life who are constantly burning stuff down and rebuilding, whether those are relationships, whether those are businesses we own, jobs we have, homes we live in. Like, I don't mean physically burn it down, but I mean in your mind, metaphorically, burn it down. And what would you do next? One of the best questions, Lily. It's like, if you could just stop doing everything you're doing and redesign your entire life, what would it look like? Everyone has an answer to that question. Some it takes 5 minutes, but in 5 minutes they have an answer. And then it's like, oh, cool. Why don't you do that? Well, excuse one, excuse two, excuse three, BS this, I self-limiting belief that. And it's like, okay, well, fine. But I wonder if you really could do it if you put your mind to it. And then they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I really do believe that we limit ourselves so much.
Totally.
And I've said this before, that my second grade teacher had said to me that I would never amount to much. And, and of course I knew that he was trying to motivate me. And I thought I was using it as a motivator. But when I look back at my life, no matter how successful I was, it wasn't much. And until we go back and we really start looking at selves. And I really do appreciate, and for those of you, if you're not the winner of this, and you got to claim it, if you want to claim the life that you want, you got to do something about it. And the one thing that you need to do is text me at 407-373-5959. Your name will go into a winner's basket, and then on Friday I will draw one name for this book. And and even if you don't want to start your own business, or you don't have your own business, but you want to be successful in your life or successful in with your family, this is a really good book to start with.
It starts with honesty. Nothing happens without being honest. Nothing. That's the foundation. Otherwise, you're building on what? Crap.
Yes, but here is what people say. Oh, I was just being honest. I was just being honest. No, this is something that has changed too, Peter. So I used to always say, you can't argue facts. You can't argue facts. You can argue opinions, but you cannot argue facts. But the facts are being destroyed.
Yeah, sure you can.
They're being destroyed. And history is being rewritten right before our eyes. And I did a meme a long time ago, said, I'm concerned that I'm as smart as Google. So if you think about it, if anybody writes anything as fact, we'll start believing it as true. Yeah. And it is the furthest from the truth. But that becomes now my truth, and I'm going to hold on to that truth and fight for that truth until the moment I take my final breath. Or we can say, what else is out there? What else is out there? So no, we can argue facts now, and that's what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. But we have to look at the details of the fact. Is it real? But people don't want to do that. They would rather repeat.
Laziness and confirmation. It's laziness and it's confirmation bias. It's like, well, it already concludes what I believe, and I don't have to do any extra work. This is perfect. And it's really bad for a society. Really bad. And I worry about that more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very concerning, because we don't know how bad it's going to get if we just allow people to tell us what truth is.
Yeah. And the more people are convinced they are the ones that know the truth, the actual worse it gets. That's what people don't realize. It's like, no, I'm the one who knows the truth, and that's why I'm trying to get everyone else. And it's like, no, you're literally the problem. That's the definition of the problem.
Correct.
Like, just stop talking and listen and read more, and like, stop trying to convince other people your opinion. You don't know if you're right or not. I don't know if I'm right or not. My wife yells at me because I go on these shows and I'm like, I do not consider myself an honest person. Why? Because it defeats the entire purpose.
That's right.
The person who says, yes, I'm self-aware, they're the least self-aware person. It doesn't work like that, And if I'm going to be honest, I have to admit that I don't know the truth. That's the definition.
Yeah. And so we talk about new truths as opposed to the truth in the classroom, because it is so important that we be open to new truths and how we find. And that is probably my most, moment, which is when you ask somebody, when they take you on and you have all your facts, your books in the row, and somebody else listens to what they have to say, and then they pull evidence that is not real because of maybe messing up the data or doing other things. And so where can we stop that and say, fine, that's what you believe, that's great, but this is what I believe right now. Let's just move on and let's look at something else that we do agree on. What do you say?
I mean, I use those opportunities to discover the person, not the truth. I'm always interested in, like, when Lily's sharing with me what she believes and where she's done research and all that, of course, those are places that I'm logging, right? Okay, I should go back to that. Oh, but if I see that, I'll reference it. But more importantly, I'm learning about Lily. I'm learning about this person and how they think and how they act and what they believe. And that's helpful to understand people, and also for my relationship with Lily. And I think if we thought more about right? You quoted Max Planck, right? People, for the most part, unfortunately, don't know their physics, but it is true in physics. At least we think it's true in physics, right? That, you don't know where an electron around an atom is until you observe it. Thus the quote about observation and reality. So the truth is in flux all the time. It seems like this is right now and maybe different tomorrow, but the person, that's what we need to do a lot more thinking about. Like the people in our lives, especially the ones we want to keep in our lives, we need to understand their truth a lot better if we're going to be better friends, family members to them.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's wonderful. And for those of you who want to get in touch with Peter and learn more about his forum that he has, you can go to honesttogreatness.com, which becomes Peter Kozodoy. And for those of you who don't know how to spell it, honesttogreatness.com. And so that's why we have whenyouneedafriend.com versus LillianMcDermott.com. So here we go. And so please remember, you need to text 407-373-5959 to get a copy of your book or to win a copy. So if you're that one lucky person, but you can use this in so many different ways. Thank you so much, Peter, for being a teacher in the classroom today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I love it when two people can come together and really discuss a problem and discover solutions are there all along. And please remember, we'll be right there waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Peter Kozodoy wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Now, all of you, you don't know this, but unless you like or write something, we don't know that you've been in the classroom. So make sure that you share and you like and you get this out there so that we can start growing the classroom the way it needs to go. So thank you so much for your comments today. Again, the book is 407-373-5959. Your name will be placed in the winner's basket and the drawing will be on Saturday. I know that the podcast is done Friday. I know the podcast is done, but even for people that are watching on YouTube, BitChute, all of you can join in this and get a copy of the book. Now, Peter, I had said that we have and if you have a question for Peter, type in a Q and write your question after that. Tell us where you're watching from and what's your takeaway today? Because, I really love having conversations and learning from people, but that respect that is a mutual respect with one another, even though I may be saying something that's just rubbing you the wrong way, that curiosity is so important as to why. What is it really? What's really underneath it? But some people would say, well, I'm not a certified life coach, or I don't have the MBA, or I don't have that skill. Again, limited belief. That tip of asking for permission is crucial, but many of us forget to do that because we're just so excited to share. So how do you tell people to stop before they hit send, to stop before they offer the advice?
I think it comes back to I'm not a life coach. You're a human being.
That's right.
I think I have a strong belief that everyone should be trained in basic coaching and communication skills. Just the active listening skills alone, Lily, right? I mean, think about, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs at this point, and just my ability now, when I think back versus when I started, to listen to someone and interpret what they're actually saying, what they actually want to express, what a skill. And I never would have developed that if I hadn't started coaching in the first place. All the questions I gave you, those are coaching questions, right?
Yes.
And I'll have, when I'm talking to other coaches, I'll have some that pause and they're like, oh, that was a good coaching question. And I'll do that to them too. We have a common language. And it, if anything, it makes us more open-minded, more curious, more honest. And I think it's one of the most powerful benefits, an ability to self-reflect on ourselves. There are other coaches like me. We coach multi-million-dollar companies, right? And we'll walk away taking more away from them than they did from us. Yeah. We learn more about ourselves. Isn't that how it
always is? Isn't that how it is? And you've wrapped it up. When you give, you receive more than what you give. It's such a beautiful, flow of things. Here you are thinking that you're doing something special, but everybody who's open to receive and to also give in return, they are just blessing you in so many different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think the first thing for me is starting with exactly what you said. Like, I'm not a coach. Yes, you are. You are a coach. Just go ahead and adopt that mindset. That's it. Because that's the first step to me. Because then it opens up a whole world of stuff. Like, oh, well, if I have a coaching mindset, then what? Well, then I have to learn to communicate better, learn to ask better questions, learn to be a better listener. But all those things can be learned, right? I already told you, like, I was like voted most likely to continue being a jerk. Like, I had to learn all this stuff. If I can learn it, you can too. Responsibility number one of being a human being should be like, learn how to do those things. Ask questions, stop yourself, right? Pause. I set up guardrails for myself. You know, I told you earlier the story of a friend who used to sit on emails, right? As soon as I learned that, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that too. Game changer, right? Texts, that annoy me, I will just leave. I won't respond to them. I just made rules for myself. Like, oh, a text came in that I don't like. 2 hours, timer starts now. That's the rule, right? Does it take discipline? Yeah. Well, being a good human takes discipline. So.
Yeah, Dr. Lorraine Day says, and actually David Icke, we just had him in the classroom, and he said that, when fear goes away and you're really doing it because it's the right thing to do, it is the right thing to do. That's where freedom really happens, when you're doing things because it's the right thing to do, and it is right to be kind, and it is honorable, but you don't have to agree with people. You can let them be who they are so that they can let you be who you are.
Well, that's confidence, right? That's true confidence.
Yeah. So in the book, I do want to talk about the book a little bit here. What was your favorite story that you'd like to share with our viewers?
It's like asking me which of my kids is best.
Yes. Which one do you like most?
Let me highlight two. Okay.
All my kids are my favorite, by the way. Each one of them is my favorite.
All my kids. Yeah, exactly. I only have one dog, so I get away easy. I'll tell you two. The first is about ancient Egypt and the feather of Ma'at. When you passed away in ancient Egypt, you were given a test to enter the afterlife. And in this test, basically, you would show up in the hall of two truths, and your heart, like your actual heart, was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, so the goddess of truth. And the idea was that if they came in balance, if you had lived a good, honest life, then you would be entered into the afterlife, which in ancient Egypt was really, really important, right? Now, if you did not live a pious life, then the heart would outweigh the feather, and you basically died forever, right? No afterlife for you. So several centuries in, the Amun priests got wise to this, and they started selling basically the Disney Fast Pass equivalent to the afterlife to folks who could afford it. And that was one of the first, though I'm not sure the first, ways in which society sort of messed up their idea of money and morality. That you could be immoral and amass wealth and then use that wealth to buy your way into, in their case, the afterlife. In our case, maybe, yachts and jets and everything else. It's great. And we've sort of seen that come through the ages. I tell stories of ancient Rome and then now, up to now, and all the scandals that have come around. And something's very different, Lily, I think people need to realize, which is that we're not seeing more scandals because we're more dishonest. We're seeing more scandals because we actually live in a more honest, more transparent society than ever, where the truth comes out. College admissions scandal, right? Volkswagen diesel scandal, Wells Fargo fake account scandal. It's very hard to hide anything, right? And in that world, I mean, this is why we're having massive problems right now. And everyone is now freshly aware of racial injustice because we've all seen with our own eyes what happened to George Floyd and all these other people, right? It's very powerful. This level of transparency is what we're living in. So, when it comes to honesty, most people have yet to fully realize that someone's recording it somewhere. And in a world where everyone's being recorded, there's really no incentive to do anything but be honest and transparent. Now, the second story is about an 11-year-old Girl Scout. It's the first story in part 2 of the book, named Charlotte. And Charlotte thought that the Girl Scouts of America could sometimes use false advertising in their cookie sales. By the way, she was 11 years old at the time. And so she set about to create an extremely honest review of the cookies that she was selling. Some she rated a 10, others she rated a 1 or even a 0. She called one cookie a gluten-free wasteland, if I recall. And so she wrote this letter, this really honest review, and she passed it along to friends and family. And she didn't just sell some cookies, but she sold 30,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Why? because it was so refreshingly honest. We have that phrase in the English language for a reason, right? And she literally capitalized on it because it was so honest. Everyone shared it, right? So there's two things that come out of that story, Lily. One is, being honest does actually work. I mean, this is a sales story, right? And it worked for her. The other thing is, what do we miss out on? What's the opportunity cost of not being brutally honest? If she had never written that letter, if she had just said, oh, here's some Girl Scout cookies, she would have sold a few boxes of cookies. She would have missed out on the wild success that she had. She was on news shows and radio shows and all kinds of stuff, right? There's an opportunity cost every time we don't step up and, like you said, do not only the right thing, but the honest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are great stories. You talk about recording everything, but recordings can also be altered.
Yeah, they sure can.
And I can show you 15 seconds of a story, but the 1 minute before that story that happened was crucial to that 15 minutes. And we've seen example after example in the news where this is happening. We see examples where a story is being told, but what you're seeing is not the same thing.
Totally.
So we're being convinced, mind control. There's so much that's happening right now, and we just need to wake up and have these conversations. And Peter, I am so grateful to you that you came on today to have this conversation with all of us today, with me, and hopefully we'll be able to share this for those of you who are watching and watch later on. Make sure you like it and you share it, because that's what I want you to do. I'm not going to ask you not to do it. I'm not going to ask you, what do you think you should do? This is what I'd like for you to do. And the book is called Honest to Greatness. Please text 407-373-5959. Claim your entry into the winner's basket so that you can get a chance in the drawing on Friday. And you can also go to Peter. Well, actually, I'll just give you honesttogreatness.com. I think that'll be the best way.
That's easier.
Yes, it is easier. So Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. I am just so grateful. Let me, before we go, let me just make sure that there are no questions. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much, Veronica, and Cheryl, for watching today. And remember, you can make a comment. If there's questions, we can always get them to Peter. So thank you, Peter, for joining us today. This was really a nice, refreshing conversation about a difference of opinion,
It's my pleasure. And thanks for being honest, Lily.
Yes, thank you. And you too. Thank you so much. And to all of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube and BitChute, and just, you know what to do. Make sure you share this so that we can beat the algorithms. We'll see you soon. Bye. Okay, great. I really loved speaking with you. Now, tell me about your forum.
So yeah, run 2 of them now for entrepreneurs, and we have everyone from pre-revenue to about 5 million in sales. And we come together once a month. It's 2 hours long, and it follows a very rigorous process. It's the same agenda that EO and YPO and like the big multi-million-dollar entrepreneur groups use, but brought down to people under that 7-figure mark where they really need it. And